Glad somebody does. So Act 3. Act 3, the stage is set. As we said, we have regularly noted that in Act 3 in the tragedies, there is a build-up of the suspense of the play and the possibility of the evil that is done to reach a state of no return where the evil will not be rectified. But we see that there are, in every case, forces that will push back and bring about a return to equilibrium or justice in accordance with the injustice done in the play, that the malefactors will be punished. And Act 3 is the scene in which the malefactors are at their greatest and are seemingly indomitable. And yet we see that there are forces that are marshaled in some sense to oppose them. And we just saw that with Hamlet. He is now using the play in order to try and mount a fight back and to restore a sense of equilibrium and justice. And he will execute it himself, or so he thinks. So we open here with the king and the queen, Polonius, Ophelia, and then Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who have just, in our last scene, Act 2, Scene 2, met with Hamlet and discoursed with him on a variety of things, among them the theater. So I'll pick it up there. Did you essay him to any pastime, the queen asks. And Rosencrantz responds, Madam, it so fell out that certain players we o'erwrought on the way, of these we told him, and there did seem in him a kind of joy to hear of it. They are here about the court, and as I think they have already order this night to play before him. 'Tis most true, says Polonius, and he beseeched me to entreat your majesties to hear and see the matter. With all my heart, says the king, suspecting nothing wrong with that. And it doth much content me to hear him so inclined. Good gentlemen, give him a further edge and drive his purpose into these delights. Encourage him into the theater. Maybe he'll get distracted. I don't think the king has a mind to get rid of Hamlet at this point. He doesn't see him as a serious rival. Sweet Gertrude, leave us too, for we have closely sent for Hamlet hither, that he, as 'twere by accident, may here affront Ophelia. Her father and myself, lawful espials, will so bestow ourselves that, seeing unseen, we may of their encounter frankly judge and gather by him as he is behaved, if be the affliction of his love, or know that thus he suffers for. So they are spectators, unseen, who will observe, just like the spectators. So lots of references to drama and theater and various vantage points from it. I shall obey you, and for your part, Ophelia, I do wish that your good beauties be the happy cause of Hamlet's wildness. So shall I hope your virtues will bring him to his wonted way again, to both your honors. Madam, I wish it may. And now Polonius speaks to her and concludes with these lines, we are oft to blame in this, 'tis too much proved, that with devotion's visage and pious action we do sugar o'er the devil himself. And then the king, showing his conscience to us in an aside to the audience, oh, 'tis too true. How smart a lash that speech doth give my conscience. The harlot's cheek, beautied with plastering art, is not more ugly to the thing that helps it than is my deed to my most painted word. Oh, heavy burden. So he feels the guilt of murdering his brother all upon him. So again, complex character. Claudius is not just a villain without a conscience. He's afflicted by what he's done. Like again, great plays are great because the characters are rich. Now Hamlet comes onto the stage. They have all withdrawn. His famous soliloquy, of which there are many in this play. But now it is the question of what to do in accordance with who he is. And because he has lost his identity, he naturally speaks in terms of existentialism. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life, for who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all. And thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, with enterprises of great pitch and moment. With this regard, their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Soft you now, the fair Ophelia, nymph, in thy orisons be all my sins remembered. In your prayers. Okay, so he breaks from his own meditation here. The meditation is, do I take my life or do I take my vengeance? He would prefer to take his life. But he's afraid of what will come after. Now he's uncertain about it, and the uncertainty is that which has been caused by the ghost. There he is, okay? That context and the theological context, very important, I think, for adding to the complexities that would be if Hamlet were an agnostic or an atheist, he would not act the way he's acting here. He would be obviously distressed. He's lost his father, his mother's quickly married, but he's not worried about what will happen to his soul after death. And that is what stops him from being the revenge tragedy hero, because he might be a demon in disguise. He said it already very plainly. All of that is holding him back. So the theological context is actually the driver of the plot. And as I say, secular critics just simply, or they don't read it, or they so discount it that they think they see Hamlet in themselves, or themselves in Hamlet. They're nihilists, so they'll wear black on stage, and they'll posture like they're Sartre on stage in front of you. Very common in the 20th century. You see the existentialist, nihilist hero wondering whether he should take his life, whether it's worth being or non-being. That's Sartre's work. Being or non-being. That's not what Hamlet is saying. He's not channeling up Sartre 4 centuries before the fact. Then he engages with Hamlet, or with Ophelia. I'm going to skip over that for lack of time, and I am up against it here. Act 3, Scene 2, re-enter with 3 of the players. I have to get back to this here, because Hamlet, as I say, teaches the actor his view of theater, which I think we can fairly assume, although it is an assumption still, that is Shakespeare's view of theater, which is that it presents an ordered view of life, not a disordered view of life. It doesn't end the way we see the Waiting for Godot. Waiting for Godot, where you're just waiting at the end, nothing happens on the play, and it ends in much the same way it began. It doesn't really have a beginning. It has a middle, but it doesn't really have an end. It is a tight work, and the beginning relates to the end, and everything in it reinforces the sense of purpose and order and agency, directing us in the ways of God and so forth. So he presents a theater as an ordered view of the world. Remember, across the theater where Shakespeare put on his works, the whole world's a stage. Speak the speech, I pray you. So now he's as a director and as an actor. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it, as many of our players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. So don't shout. Don't be like actors that just bellow. Have a sense of, the difference between the lines. Understand what you're speaking. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hand. Thus, but use all gently. For in the very torrent, tempest, and as I may say, whirlwind of your passion, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness. So even though you're filled with passions and so forth, don't let the passion so overcome you that there's no reason in your lines. There has to be reason that is conveyed to the audience. Much of contemporary film and drama and so forth shows people that have totally lost control of themselves. They're throwing themselves around the stage, overwhelmed with passions in accordance with the situation they find themselves. It's supposed to be theater. It's not supposed to be true to life. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to be aware that it's theater and that something's being taught in it. You're being taught, not just being, as I say, entertained, let alone identify with it so strongly that you don't reflect on the situation. So it must have a smoothness. Oh, it offends me to the soul to hear a robustious, periwig-pated fellow tear a passion to tatters, to very rags to split the ears of the groundlings, who for the most part are capable of nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. I would have such a fellow whipped for o'erdoing termagant. It out Herods Herod. Pray you, and avoid it, I warrant your honor. Be not too tame, neither, but let your own discretion be your tutor. So and this is why the assignment here in acting is to use your judgment. And the assignment is for me to test your discretion, your judgment, not your acting skills. What were you trying to do? I want you to be thinking about the acting. Let discretion be your tutor. Suit the action to the word to the action, and this special observance, that you o'erstep not the modesty of nature. Words and action have to meet. This is a thoroughly Christian view of the word. Remember, the word in Hebrew is davar. It means word. It also means action. When God speaks, he acts. Let there be light, and there was light. He speaks, and the whole world comes into being. Words and action are ideally married. Just like the Renaissance man, contemplation and action. Let the words and your actions fit. There should be a consistency and an integrity about everything you do. For anything so or done is from the purpose of playing, whose end, both at the first and now, was and is to hold, as 'twere the mirror up to nature, to show virtue, her own feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time, his form and pressure. Now, this overdone or come tardy off, though it makes the unskillful laugh, so if you're a bad actor, people are going to be chuckling, cannot make the judicious grieve, the censure of the one which must in your allowance o'erweigh a whole theater of others. So you play your part for the most judicious in your audience. Don't play down to the crowd. Play to the most intelligent. Use discretion. That's your moral responsibility, because you will elevate the rest. Same goes with teaching, by the way. Never teach to the middle of the class. Teach to the top. Teach to the brightest student in the class. And everyone else will come with it. Don't think, let alone to the bottom of the class. I'll have to make it so that the person who's really struggling understands everything I'm saying. That's not then teaching at all. You're not teaching anymore. Because teaching is going to pull them out of their understanding to something above that. And it's very possible to do that. But if you go to education faculties, they will tell you to teach to the middle. And then by the middle, you're getting the biggest number of people. It's a very sort of a practical way of suggesting it. It denies wisdom and virtue. Your aim is to inculcate wisdom and virtue. How do you do that? By appealing to the most wise and virtuous and judicious in your audience and pulling them up. That's how you teach. Otherwise, it's not teaching. Because remember, Christ is that much higher than us. How are we ever going to get to Christ if we appeal to the lowest and the contradictions of his character, his mind, his virtue, his breadth, and so forth? So you must teach to the top. And there he says, and it's for the one in the audience, not the many, the one. Oh, there be players that I have seen play and heard others praise, and that highly, not to speak it profanely, that neither having the accent of Christians, nor the gait of Christian, pagan nor man, have so strutted and bellowed that I have thought some of nature's journeymen had made men, and not made them well. They imitated humanity so abominably. So if you want to present human nature in its fullest, you appeal to the best of human nature. Because we have ample illustration of the worst around us. That will not teach you anything other than that mankind is contemptible. But mankind is not contemptible. For all of the instances that contradict that, there is something noble in man. And he's going to expostulate on that briefly as well. I hope we have reformed that indifferently with us, sir. Oh, reform it altogether. And let those that play your clowns speak no more than is set down for them. For there be of them that will themselves laugh, to set on some quantity of barren spectators to laugh too, though in the meantime some necessary question of the play be then to be considered. That's villainous and shows a most pitiful ambition in the fool that uses it. Go make you ready. Okay, so with these words, I think a great deal can be discerned about Shakespeare's own view of the theater and what to do here. So suit the action, the word, the action, talking about and take and apply this from theater to the realm of life. This is what teaching is. This is how to live, teaching us how to live through art. And remember, to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature. Mimesis, the representation of reality. What is reality? Reality is not showing us the lowest common denominator. Don't appeal to the utilitarian who says that the greatest number of people are at the baseline of life and they're motivated by what Maslow calls the hierarchy of needs. Don't appeal to that. Appeal to the top. And then you're going to show what? You're going to show virtue and wisdom. It's not that you exclude the others either, but you must have a mixed audience in mind. And your hero needs to be heroic. He must be better than us. You can't have a tragedy, says Aristotle, unless the character in front of us is a king or someone superior to us, not just in station, but in his character. He's superior to us. How many plays, films, books are about people that are superior to us now? Are there any? Because I don't see it. I see contemptible, disgraceful human beings portrayed to us all the time, and it has a corresponding effect on character. Anyway, enough of my soapbox stuff. But Hamlet is showing us Shakespeare's Renaissance view of the function of art, and he will be in accord with not just the Christians of his age, but with antiquity as well on this, and with it education. So what we find here is, and then he'll speak to towards the end of this when he comes to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who enter as well as the others here. No, it's still Act 3, Scene 2. When the play is put on, that he is confirming the ghost's words and reaffirming his love for the theater. So Act 3, Scene 2, not 293, where am I? If I can get it. Shoot. Stop it. So they have the dumb play and the pouring of the poison in the ear and so forth. And the king rises in response to this when it's explained to him by Hamlet. He poisons him in the garden for his estate. Now, the scene there of a garden will have Christian connotations. God is often presented as a gardener, repeatedly in the gospel accounts, echoing Genesis 1. God is the gardener, not just Adam and Eve working as gardeners in the garden, but God himself being the gardener. The gardener. They're doing what God does by watering the garden, tilling it, keeping the... Remember, they're supposed to tend and keep the garden, etc. He poisons them in the garden for his estate. His name's Gonzago. The story is extant and written in very choice Italian. You shall see anon how the murderer gets the love of Gonzago's wife. And at that point, Claudius rises because he thinks Hamlet is on to him, which he is, of course. The king rises. What? Frighted with false fire? What, just because of this? How fares my lord? Give o'er the play. Give me some light away. Lights, lights, lights. All but Hamlet and Horatio exit. And then Hamlet. Why? Let the strucken deer go weep, the heart ungalled play. For some must watch while some must sleep. Thus runs the world away. Would not this, sir, in a forest of feathers, if the rest of my fortunes turn Turk with me, with 2 provincial roses on my race shoes, give me a fellowship and a cry of players? Half a share, a whole one I, for thou dost know, O Damon dear, this realm dismantled was of Jove himself, and now reigns here a very, very Patrick. You might have rhymed. Oh, good Horatio, I'll take the ghost's word for £1,000. Didst perceive? Very well, my lord. Upon the talk of the poisoning, I did very well note him. Aha! Come, some music. Okay, so one calls for the lights because his sin has been illumined to him. And remember, his conscience, which was already piqued, is now quickened still further. He feels torment. Hamlet calls for music because order, harmony is coming back. He's delighted. He's been taught. He's found his villain. Come the recorders, for if the king like not the comedy, why then belikes it not perdie. Come some music. Now Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, these 2 friends who are buffoons, enter the stage. And he puts them off by revealing his knowledge of their themes, what they've been set out to do. And what we see now is there's a transformation in Hamlet. He's transforming into the action hero because he's able to do things through action, and he's gradually gaining the ability to believe in himself, recover his identity, and also to act further. Now so there's a transformation in the character of Hamlet on the stage in front of us. Very much of a changing character. And feels an impulse to violence, but more or less restrains himself. And in Act 3, Scene 3, we see the consequence of that scene. King, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern, and the king is extraordinarily upset. I like him not, nor stands it safe with us to let his madness range. Therefore, prepare you. I, your commission, will forthwith dispatch, and he to England shall along with you. The terms of our estate may not endure hazard so nears as doth hourly grow out of his brows. So now he knows Hamlet's onto him. He has to get rid of him. That's all he says to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They don't know what's in the note. They just thinking they're taking their friend away to England. They have no idea that the letter within it says, don't let him live. We will ourselves provide most holy and religious fear it is to keep those many bodies safe that live and feed upon your majesty. And Rosencrantz likewise, and off they go. Polonius enters. My lord, he's going to his mother's closet. Behind the arras, I'll convey myself to hear the process. So again, spectator behind a curtain. and we'll listen in, and we're observing him. So lots of spectator scenes. Spectators are also revealed. Again, talking about the didactic function of the play, thinking about the audience as well as the director, etc. Our warrant shall tax him home, and as you said, and wisely was it said, 'tis meet with some more audience than a mother, since nature makes them partial mothers, should o'erhear the speech of vantage. Fare you well, my liege, I'll call upon you ere you go to bed, and tell you what I know. Thanks, my lord. And Polonius is there. And now the king. What is the king thinking out here? We've already had a little bit of insight into him. Now we get a full insight in his soliloquy. Oh, my offense is rank. It smells to heaven. It hath the primal eldest curse upon it, a brother's murder. I'm Cain. Pray can I not, though inclination be as sharp as will, my stronger guilt defeats my strong intent, and like a man to double business bound, I stand in pause where I shall first begin, and both neglect. So now he's like Hamlet, incapable of action because of the evil. What if this cursed hand were thicker than itself with brother's blood? Is there not rain enough in the sweet heavens to wash it white as snow? He knows about grace. Whereto serves mercy but to confront the visage of offense? And what's in prayer but this twofold force, to be forestalled ere we come to fall, that is to repent, before the outcome of our bad deeds meets its full outcome. I can appeal for grace at this point and not meet my deserved fate. Then I'll look up. My fault is past. But oh, what form of prayer can serve my turn? Forgive me my foul murder. That cannot be, since I am still possessed of those effects for which I did the murder. You're not going to be forgiven for the murder if you don't give up all the things that you did and benefited from by committing the murder. That would be repentance. Just saying, forgive me, that's not going to do anything. You have to act it out. You can't. It's not just words and thoughts. Actions have to follow this to rectify the wrong that's been done. My crown, my known ambition, and my queen. May one be pardoned and retain the offense? In the corrupted currents of this world, offense's gilded hand may shove by justice. So in the world, it's possible to appear cleansed. And oft 'tis seen the wicked prize itself buys out the law. What we call justice is justice purchasing a not guilty verdict. But 'tis not so above. There is no shuffling. There the action lies in his true nature, and we are ourselves compelled, even to the teeth and forehead of our faults, to give in evidence. What then? What rests? Try what repentance can. What can it not? So this is a Frodo Gollum thing. It's going back and forth. I could do this, I could do that, and what can it not? Yet what can it when one cannot repent? O wretched state, O bosom black as death, O limed soul. They put lime on the corpses of bodies when they're dead, and they go in the grave, you throw lime, the white lime, on them. O bosom, O limed soul, that struggling to be free art more engaged. Help, angels, make essay. Bow stubborn knees and heart with strings of steel. Be soft as sinews of the newborn babe. All may be well. And so he kneels, and then Hamlet comes in and sees him kneeling in prayer and knows that he is the one who murdered his father now. And he's ready on vengeance. Now might I do it. Pat. Now he is praying, and now I'll do it. Sword comes out, ready to do it. And so he goes to heaven. And so am I revenged. That would be scanned. By whom? Heaven. A villain kills my father, and for that I, his sole son, do the same villain send to heaven. Why? This is higher end salary, not revenge. Yeah, pay somebody to do this. What is revenge? Now he's thinking measure for measure. He took my father grossly, full of bread, with all of his crimes broad blown as flush as May. And now he's in purgatory. But this man's repenting, and he's going to go straight to heaven. There's no correspondence there. That's not justice. That's not true revenge. There's a similitude of revenge. Just one man dead, another man dead. But this man goes here, that man goes there. That's not vengeance. And how his audit stands, who knows, save heaven. But in our circumstance and course of thought, 'tis heavy with him. And am I then revenged to take him in the purging of his soul when he is fit and seasoned for his passage? No. Up sword, and know thou a horrid hent. Back he sheathes the sword. When he's drunk, asleep, or in his rage, or in the incestuous pleasure of his bed, at game, a swearing, or above some act that has no relish of salvation in it, then trip him, and his heels may kick at heaven, and that his soul may be as damned and black as hell. Thereto it goes. Whereto it goes. My soul, my mother stays, this physic but prolongs thy sickly days. And then he leaves, and then the king gets up, and we find out that he was not able to pray anyway. But that's the tragedy of Hamlet. My words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. Out he goes. But you see, again, the complexity of the situation. Hamlet is not satisfied with simply killing the man. It needs to be just in every sense. It's his Christianity that prevents him from action at the end of the day. And by the way, the more guilt that Claudius feels and demonstrates to the audience, the more complex his character becomes. He becomes more like Hamlet. Harder for us to dislike and see as a, just the blackest villain for all of his crimes. But he won't do it. And the critics, as I say, are puzzled by this. A.C. Bradley says that it wouldn't be fair play, basically. Kill a man while he's down. You got to act like a gentleman, wait till he's in front of him. He says Hamlet's restrained because Claudius is at such a disadvantage, and he's a good sport. He's a gentleman. He's not going to, stab him while he's down. Did you read the lines? That's not motivation. He's worried about his eternal soul. That's what it is. Kiddo says Hamlet refuses for the reasons he tells us. He's aspiring too high, however, by attempting to become agent of divine justice as well as an instrument of human justice. So he probably should have just done it and not worried about the heavenly consequences. Perhaps a better reading. And his feelings for his mother are complicated here as well. But what he's doing is he's restoring the fragmented world of himself back together along the way. He's rehabilitating himself. Yes?
If we read it in the light of what's happening in Wittenberg, the line where he's saying, "And oft to see in the wicked prize itself flies at the law, but 'tis not so above, there is no shuffling." Could that be seen as the king's kind of view on the idea of purgatory and being able to buy yourself out of?
No, I think he's just thinking about the distinction between grace and our attempts at justice. Where is the line here now?
It's within his soliloquy, King's soliloquy.
Yes. Is it not Hamlet's?
No, that's the King's line.
Okay. And where is it here? My crown, my own measurement, maybe one be pardoned and retain the offense. In the corrupted currents of this world, yes. You can still have your cake and eat it. You can say, I'm sorry, I apologize. Just like in politics now. People say, oh, well, I'm really sorry, and I'm going to stay in office. I've seen politicians do it regularly. It used to be they would resign. They got caught in an act, they admit it, and then they resign. And the resignation, the action, shows that they were not willing to, they're willing to show the sincerity of their speech. I'm not worthy of the office, and I resign. I admit it, I resign. Okay. But if you admit it and then you stay in office, this is just speechifying. It's just, and your actions are at odds with your words. And that's simply what Claudius is expressing here, is that it's not enough for heaven for us to say things if we don't actually act in accordance with that. And that would mean me giving up my crown, my wife, and everything that goes with it, and probably his life for that matter. He's going to have to give up everything. But that's open to him if he truly repents here, and heaven will look favorably on that, and he will have eternal life. He'll repent. That's a possibility. He doesn't want that. Oh, lime and soul and struggling before you art more engaged. That struggling before you art more engaged. So he feels the conflict within him, just like we saw the black villain in Measure for Measure, Angelo. In the presence of the possibility of grace, he decides to double down. He knows he could have it, but is unwilling to give up all the benefits that he acquired by doing the dirty deed to begin with. That's what's going on here. It's not, I don't think there's a distinction between Catholic and Protestant here. That's what I think. Okay? So, the Queen and Polonius, Hamlet comes in, speak. Now, Hamlet, note that he's going around, and he's going around not just as a playwright, although he is still doing that everywhere, but as a pedagogue. He wants his mother rehabilitated. Remember, his father said, don't be too harsh on her. Hamlet is going to do more than not be too harsh on her. He wants his mom to repent as well. And he wants to bring her back to him. Be on my side. I don't want to lose you in the process. If I can't take your life, then you need to repent. And repentant means that you need to give up the incestuous sheets of this man who's not your husband, but my father's brother, who is also a murderer, etc. So he is imploring her, trying to win her back, recover something of everything that's been lost here. And he's successful, by the way. So Hamlet is, and this is why the tragedy could, if we didn't know what the outcome was, become a comedy, because he could still marry Ophelia. It could become a comedy. How? Now, mother, what's the matter? Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. Mother, you have my father much offended. Come, come, you answer with an idle tongue. Go, go, you question with a wicked tongue. Why, how now, Hamlet? What's the matter now? Have you forgot me? No, by the rood, by the cross. Not so. You are the queen, your husband's brother's wife. And would it were not so, you are my mother. Nay, then I'll set those to you that can speak. Come, come, and sit you down. You shall not budge. You go not till I set you up a glass. Okay, hold the mirror up to nature. Right? The speech. As twere the mirror up to nature to show nature her true self, virtue, etc., form and pressure of the times. He is going to show her who she is, where you may see the inmost part of you. The inmost part is your moral nature. What wilt thou do? Thou wilt not murder me. Help, ho! Polonius behind the arras. What, ho? Help? How now? A rat dead for a ducat dead. And sticks him dead behind the arras. Oh, I am slain. I always find that sort of hilarious that they say. And then follower. Oh me, what hast thou done? Nay, I know not. Is it the king? Oh, what a rash and bloody deed is this? A bloody deed, almost as bad, good mother, as kill a king and marry with his brother. As kill a king. Aye, lady, it was my word. He drags the corpse behind the curtain again. Thou wretched, rash, intruding fellow, farewell. I took thee for thy better. He thought it was the king. Take thy fortune. Thou find'st to be too busy is some danger. Now back to the queen. Leave wringing of your hands. Peace. Sit you down and let me wring your heart. For so I shall, if it be made of penetrable stuff, if damned custom have not brazed it so that it be proof and bulwark against sense. And now he speaks to her. Now before this, when Hamlet's setting his hands upon her, I've seen on stage Hamlet on top of his mother, mounting her effectively, showing his, that the Oedipal complex motivates the whole interaction with her. This is the ridiculous. This is totally ridiculous, implausible interpretation. It's not exegesis, it's eisegesis, reading in from the form and pressure of our time into Hamlet's time, Shakespeare's time. Not so. He wants her to repent. What have I done that thou darest wag thy tongue in noise so rude against me? Such an act that blurs the grace and blush of modesty, calls virtue hypocrite, takes off the rose from the fair forehead of an innocent love, and sets a blister there, makes marriage vows as false as dicers' oaths. Oh, such a deed is from the body of contraction plucks the very soul, and sweet religion makes a rhapsody of words. Heaven's face does glow, or this solidity and compound mass with heated visitors against the doom is thought sick at the act. Ay me, what act that roars so loud and thunders in the index? Now he's going to pick up pictures. They're not photographs, they're portraits that are done. Who is it? The king and his brother. Look here upon this picture, and on this, the counterfeit presentment of two brothers. See what a grace was seated on this brow, his father. Hyperion's curls, the front of Jove himself, an eye like Mars to threaten and command. A station like the herald Mercury, new lighted on a heaven-kissing hill. A combination in a form indeed, where every god did seem to set his seal to give the world assurance of a man. This was your husband. Look you now what follows. Here is your husband, like a mildewed ear blasting his wholesome brother. Have you eyes? Could you on this fair mountain leave to feed and batten on this moor? So you've gone from the heights to the flatlands. Have you eyes? You cannot call it love, for at your age the heyday in the blood is tame. It's not passion. You're an old lady. You're not 19. It's humble and waits upon the judgment. And what judgment would step from this to this? Sense sure you have, else could you not have motion. But sure that sense is apoplexed, for madness would not err, nor sense to ecstasy was ne'er so thralled, but it reserved some quantity of choice to serve in such a difference. What devil was it that has thus cozened you at hoodmen blind? Eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or eyes, smelling, sans all, or but a sickly part of one true sense could not so mope. Oh shame, where is thy blush? Rebellious hell, if thou canst mutiny in a matron's bones. To flaming youth let virtue be as wax, and melt in her own fire. Proclaim no shame when the compulsive ardor gives the charge, since frost itself as actively doth burn, and reason panders will. O Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turn'st my eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grained spots as will not leave their taint. She's being forced to look at her moral conduct. And this is his purpose, of course, just like the good playwright. Here the actor is the playwright, but he plays his part in getting her to look at her soul and the form of virtue, etc. This is exactly what a good playwright would do. Nay, but to live in the rank sweat of an enseamed bed, stewed in corruption, honeying and making love, or the nasty sty, pigsty, Oh, speak to me no more. These words like daggers enter in my ears. We're thinking a Shakespearean audience is thinking of Macbeth. This is a dagger I see, but these are daggers enter in my ears. No more, sweet Hamlet, a murderer and a villain, a slave that is not a 20th part the tithe of your precedent lord, a vice of kings, a cutpurse of the empire and the rule, that from a shelf the precious diadem stole and put it in his pocket. No more, a king of shreds and patches. Now the ghost comes in. And Hamlet starts. Save me and hover o'er me with your wings, you heavenly guards. What would your gracious figure? Queen doesn't see anything. Alas, he's mad. And then he goes back. And the ghost reminds him, do not forget this visitation is but to whet thy almost blunted purpose. Don't get distracted with your mother. Your purpose is to kill the king. But look, amazement on thy mother sits. Oh, step between her and her fighting soul. Conceit in weakest bodies, strongest works. Speak to her, Hamlet. The ghost has compassion. Hamlet does not. The husband, rather than the son. The son feels loss, disgust, rage. The father is more moderate, more virtuous. What is it with you, lady? Alas, how is it with you? That you do bend your eye on vacancy, and with the incorporeal air do hold discourse? Forth at your eyes your spirits wildly peep, and as the sleeping soldiers in the alarm, your bedded hair like life in excrements start up and stand on end. O gentle sun, upon the heat and flame of thy distemper, sprinkle cool patience. Whereon do you look? On him, on him. She doesn't see him. So there's a back and forth here between Hamlet and his ghost, his father's ghost, and the queen thinks he's mad throughout here. He knows otherwise. The audience knows otherwise. And he reconciles him with his mother. And he repents him of his act towards Polonius, 194. I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so, to punish me with this and this with me, that I must be their scourge and minister. I will bestow him and will answer well the death I gave him. So he's very sorry that he killed Polonius. And he will pay for it, he says. So again, good night. I must be cruel only to be kind. This bad begins and worse remains behind. One word more, good lady, what shall I do? And now he sets her on the path. Not this, by no means, that I bid you do. Let the bloat king tempt you again to bed. Pinch wanton on your cheek, call you his mouse, and let him, for a pair of reechy kisses or paddling in your neck with his damned fingers, make you to ravel all this matter out, that I essentially am not in madness, but mad in craft. 'Twere good you let him know. For who's that but a queen, fair, sober, wise, that would from a paddock, from a bat, a jib, such dear concernings hide? Who would do it? Be thou assured, if words be made of breath, and breath of life, I have no life to breathe, what thou hast said to me. And he lets on and lets him know that there's a death warrant that's gone with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and he knows it. Anyway, Act 4, the consequences of the killing of Polonius. This is the deed that he does rashly, but repents himself of it. He wishes that he had not done it. However, he has done it, and this will be his undoing. His lack of judgment. He's a man who's very much in control of himself, even to the point of feigning madness, where he shows that it appears to be out of control. He has been in control all along. And he acts, but the one act he commits, the first one he hits, is a rash act. And it will undo him. And it does undo him, because of course there'll be a consequence. And the consequence, he's going to fight Laertes. And Laertes is going to be a villain and bait his sword with poison at the king's behest. It's not going to be a fair fight. But Hamlet is going to pay for the crime that he committed by killing his father. There is justice in this, but it's a tragedy. He commits a rash act. there's almost a missionary zeal on Hamlet's part to convert his mother and to convince her that Claudius embodies evil. And I think there's some realism in this, because it's part of the disorder that Hamlet has already expressed of himself, that the world has no justice in it. There's no order, no justice, because he believes. He cannot believe that the world is so utterly wicked that there's no trace, no redemption possible in it, and so he goes about trying to restore order and harmony such as he can in it. And he does that with his mother. So he echoes the sentiments of his very first soliloquy and externalizes them. And he shows and tells here. And he accuses his mother of letting her passions rule over her. You let your eyes work, and even then, look at the two. Have you not eyes? Like I'm just. It's the reductio. So there's the reason, the will, and the passions. Okay, the passions through the bodily senses. But even if you have eyes, look at this man and look at this man. There's no comparison. A mountain, a plain. And so her judgment has failed her. So he is trying to encourage her to be a better person with more discernment, etc. She leaves off, won't betray him. Now it's either or. Either she's on Hamlet's side or she's on her husband's side, Claudius. She is on Hamlet's side now. So he has won her over. He doesn't expect her to do anything more, but she is now his mother again. And she is against the king. She is treasonous. Sir Philip Sidney says that tragedy should show the greatest wounds and show the uncertainty on which the world is based as a prerequisite to healing it. Tragedy should open the greatest ulcers and show the uncertainty on which the world is based as a prerequisite to healing it. And Hamlet echoes that. So there's a purpose, a didactic purpose in showing sin, the sinfulness of sin, the darkness of it. But not to just show it, but show the healing of it, the remedy which grace provides. Hamlet is demonstrating grace towards his mother on earth as it is in heaven. So he is being her spiritual superior, even though he be her son. The ghost reappears, invisible to Gertrude, reminds him to get back to your job, revenge. Hamlet has a more heavenly mind than the ghost in this sense. Not the ghost, there's something in here ambiguous here, is not concerned with Hamlet's concern for his mother's soul. But we do at the end of this point meet a Hamlet who's gained more confidence. His mother's recognized the truth of his tale. The moral order in his life is slowly being restored. He is more capable of action. Words are not just words, but there's some connection between words and actions. There's justice in this world. He reaffirms belief in a higher power and believes himself to be an instrument of it. So now he's ready for revenge because there is a God. There is good in the world. And it's worth fighting for, quoting Samwise Gamgee. That's it. So he reveals to the queen he's not actually mad. He's playing mad. And she must wonder it because she doesn't see anything there. Like father's ghost. So he says it. She says, okay, but it's like probably not sure about this. But by confiding in her, he's taking her away from Claudius. And a greater ability to act, and he demonstrates that further by tricking Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and switching the paper that they were going to deliver, and they will be killed, not by him, but by the bearer of the note. So what we have here are three things. We have Hamlet coming closer to overcoming the sources of his inaction, his melancholy. And that will be complete when all of the final obstacles, internal obstacles, are removed, and the final soliloquies he utters will show that he has removed those impediments. So he is a perfect marriage of contemplation and action, and his contemplation has to be right. He has to, in his own mind, be ready for action before he's willing to act. And he removes all of those. And then, unfortunately, he's killed. But he's ready for action. And the final soliloquies will show that. So he's removing the internal obstacles. He also has external obstacles that still remain. Claudius is now aware of his threat, and he employs Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to try and get rid of him. But thirdly, the relationships in the play change by the dynamics that have just happened. Laertes is now a very angry young man who wants vengeance. And Claudius is going, as a dramaturge figure, to use Claudius to orchestrate his desires for vengeance. As I say, Gertrude's now on Hamlet's side, but there's a little ambiguity, in part because probably she's wondering if Hamlet's mad. So there's a little ambiguity in her lines. And the ambiguity is shown in the fact that not only are her lines, so she actually stands between him and Laertes at one point and gets killed for it. And Hamlet and Claudius, she comes in, and Claudius is more actively suppressing Hamlet, and he keeps up Hamlet's contrivance of madness to protect his own interests. He knows that Hamlet's not mad, but he presents to everybody else as if he's thinking that Hamlet is mad. So now everybody's acting, and they're using their acting to their advantage publicly. Where shall we pick up here? Act 4, let's get rid of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Hamlet got rid of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. No. Scene 3, enter King, and 2 or 3. I have sent to seek him and to find the body. How dangerous it is that this man goes loose. Yet must not we put the strong law on him. So Claudius realizes the extreme danger of Hamlet, but does not want to arrest him. He's loved of the distracted multitude, who like not in their judgment, but their eyes. They like with their eyes. He appears, he's a good-looking, dashing young prince. They're going to trust that. They're going to act like the mob acts. And where it is so, the offender's scourge is weighed, but never the offense. To bear all smooth and even, he's killed Polonius. I should be able to arrest him. I can't, without upsetting the body politic. To bear all smooth and even, this sudden sending him away must seem deliberate pause. Diseases, desperate grown by desperate appliances, are relieved, or not at all. Rosencrantz, Guildenstern say, we can't find Polonius' body. Okay. And Hamlet will sort of jest back and forth with Hamlet, and eventually Hamlet lets him know where the body is. Now, scene 4. And I mentioned at the beginning of the play the role of Norway in this. Again, a foil for Hamlet, a foil for Laertes, a revenge tragedy hero. But coming now from the point of being a threat to being an imminent reality. So there are threats within the court of Denmark, Hamlet against Claudius, but also external to the court, closing in on Claudius as well. So again, the possibility here that Fortinbras will come in and will take out Claudius, and justice will be done. Hamlet will not die. Ophelia will not die. Enter Fortinbras with his army over the stage. Go, captain, and from me greet the Danish king. Tell him that by his license, Fortinbras craves the conveyance of a promised march over his kingdom. You know the rendezvous. If that his majesty would aught with us, we shall express our duty in his eye, and let him know it. I will do it, my lord. Go softly on, all but the captain. Exit. Enter Hamlet, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, and others. Good sir, whose powers are these? They are of Norway, sir. How purposed, sir, I pray you, against some part of Poland? Remember, that was the excuse. It's going to march through Denmark to get to Poland. There's where the war is going to happen. We know that's not what Fortinbras plans. So he is, although he's being manipulated by the dramaturge that's his father, he's going to go against his father's wishes, or rather his uncle's wishes, and again mirroring, to do what he wants, which is to get his vengeance. Who commands him then? The nephew to old Norway, Fortinbras. Goes it against the main of Poland, sir, or for some frontier? Truly to speak, and with no addition, we go to gain a little patch of ground that hath in it no profit but the name. To pay 5 ducats, 5, I would not farm it, nor will it yield to Norway or the Pole a ranker rate should it be sold in fee. Why then, the Polak never will defend it. Yes, it's already garrisoned. 2,000 souls and 20,000 ducats will not debate the question of this straw. This is the imposthume of much wealth and peace, that inward breaks and shows no cause without. Why the man dies. I humbly thank you, sir. So he sees the ways of the world. They will fight over nothing. And he won't act over everything. He sees, again, the mirror up to his nature on this. God be with you, sir. Will it please you go, my lord? I'll be with you straight, go a little before. Now Hamlet speaks. In response to what he sees Norway willing to do, Fortinbras, for the sake of a little plot of land that's not even worth farming. How all occasions do inform against me, and spur my dull revenge. What is a man if this his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? A beast, no more. If justice is not, and merit, and you're willing to throw away 20,000 lives, and all the money to go get this little patch of ground that's not even worth defending, and the Poles are willing to defend it with all the money and blood and treasure that they can for literally nothing, what are human beings? This is disgraceful. A beast no more. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fust in us unused. Such an irrational act. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which, quartered, hath but 1 part wisdom, and ever 3 parts coward, I do not know why yet I live to say this things to do, sith I have cause, and will, and strength, and means to do it. Examples gross as earth exhort me. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition puffed makes mouth at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument. So he disagrees that all wars should be fought. It has to have a just cause. It has to have merit. It has to be virtuous. He's an idealist. Hamlet is not willing to set aside the rectitude of the cause for simply vengeance. So he's making a comment on this. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at the stake? How stand I then, that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men, that for a fantasy and trick of fame go to their graves like beds, fight for a plot whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the stain. Oh, from this time forth, be thoughts, be bloody, or be nothing worth. Okay. The internal obstacle has been removed. What's the internal obstacle? Virtue, justice. And in a sense, he becomes a more potent man. And in a sense, he becomes a less potent man. He's willing to compromise on virtue. I'll skip over the Queen's speech with Horatio and so forth. Ophelia comes in, and Ophelia has lost her marbles at this point. Not quite yet fallen in the water. We'll find that speech after, but she has really lost it. Ophelia sings, larded all with sweet flowers, which bewept to the ground did not go, with true love showers. How do you now, pretty lady? Well, God dild you. They say the owl was a baker's daughter. Lord, we know that we are, but know not what we may be. God be at your table. Conceit upon her father. She's thinking about her father. And her mind's totally distressed, destroyed. Pray, let's have no words of this. But when they ask you what it means, say you this. And then sings, tomorrow is St. Valentine's Day, all in the morning betime, and I am made at your window to be your Valentine. Then up he rose and donned his clothes and dopped the chamber door, let in the maid, that out a maid never departed more. Pretty Ophelia, indeed, without an oath I'll make an end on it. By Gis and by St. Charity, alack and fie for shame. Young men will do it, if they come to it. By cock they are to blame. Quoth she, before you tumbled me, you promised me to wed. He answers, so would I ha' done by yonder sun, and thou hadst not come to my bed. How long hath she been thus? So she has lost her mind. Truly, Hamlet had not. She is overthrown. In the same way that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. And the king responding, soliloquy, oh, this is the poison of deep grief. It springs all from her father's death. And now behold, O Gertrude, Gertrude, when sorrows come, they come not single spies, but in battalions. First, her father slain. Next, your son gone, and he the most violent author of his own just remove. The people muddied, thick and unwholesome in their thoughts and whispers for good Polonius' death. And we have done but greenly in hugger-mugger to inter him. We're not even doing anything. We're just sort of hugging him and showing him compassion. Poor Ophelia divided from herself. And so now he's trying to persuade his wife to more severe action towards Hamlet. We've just hugger-muggered him. Mollycoddled. Poor Ophelia divided from herself and her fair judgment, without the which we are pictures or mere beasts. Is this not just the speech? These are the very words that Hamlet just uttered. Without fair judgments, we're just as pictures of human beings. We're mere beasts. Last and as much containing as all these, her brother is in secret come from France, feeds on his wonder, keeps in the clouds, and wants not buzzers to infect his ear with pestilent speeches of his father's death. Where in necessity of matter beggared, will nothing stick our person to a rein in ear and ear. O my Gertrude, this, like to a murdering piece in many places, gives me superfluous death. And then there's a noise. Attend, where are my Switzers, my Swiss guards? Let them guard the door. What's the matter? Save yourself, my lord. The ocean, o'erpeering of his list, eats not the flats with more impiteous haste than young Laertes in a riotous head o'erbears your officers. The rabble call him lord, and as the world were now but to begin, antiquity forgot, custom not known, the ratifier and props of every word, they cry, choose we, Laertes shall be king. Caps, hands, and tongues applaud it to the clouds. Laertes shall be king, Laertes king. queen. How cheerfully on the false trail they cry. Oh, this is counter, you false Danish dogs. The doors are broke, and Laertes comes in. They want revenge. There's a lot of injustice. They want somebody to do something. And Laertes is angry and hot, and the mob wants their blood. And Laertes comes in, and he's ready for it. Now, what Claudius does with him is baits him. He uses him to redirect his anger towards Hamlet. And he'll bait his sword with poison as well. Again, very symbolic thing. His motives are abundantly clear here. And Ophelia's madness in this scene builds our feelings for her, which have been building throughout the play because she's such a attractive young character. And really one of Shakespeare's most complete victims. As I say, because her downfall is the result of a whole slew of actions of others. A victim of a very uncertain world. And she, for a few scenes, she actually replaces Hamlet as the tragic hero. She steals the scenes. So it's a fantastic, even though it's a secondary character, is a very important primary character among the secondary characters. And a foil for Hamlet to some degree. We feel great compassion for her. But compared with tragic heroines like Dido, she is passive, compliant, accepting, dutiful, and everything that we admire in a person. So she's a virtuous young woman who just breaks under the distress and is manipulated by everyone in the end. So torn between her love for Hamlet and her brother and her father, and she has no freedom to act at all. So she can't, through imagination, through acting, get herself out of the trap she's in. And so she acts in the way appropriate to a young woman who has no will and to act or ability to act. She just falls in the water and lets herself passively sink beneath the water. It's very poetically convincing. She wants to love Hamlet. She obeys duty. And when Hamlet murders her father, she might even feel partly responsible for Hamlet's madness in action here. Because again, she's not acted in accordance with her heart. She's done what others have bid her to do. So she's even more fragmented. And again, this is in keeping with how men and women break differently. Women tend to collapse internally, and they're a danger to themselves. Men tend to get, when they lose it, they are violent physically and so forth. Talking in general. Same sort of thing exhibited differently. And the men can carry on, by the way, and function. The women just become dysfunctional. The men can still function in a certain way, and yet their actions are untethered from rational direction. When she comes in Act 4, Scene 5, with flowers, the flowers are a product of nature, and they might be her way of trying to affirm a belief in nature, and uses the flowers to accuse. And they have symbolic significance, the different types of flowers. I'm not going to get into all that for this. But when she finally dies, we get it secondhand from Gertrude, Act 4, Scene 7. Where be you? That's King and Laertes. Laertes being manipulated. And then the messenger comes in. What's the line? 165. Is this correct? Laertes is already bent on revenge against his father's murderer, but now something will prevent him from enacting his vengeance, and that will be his sister's death. So there's a temporary interlude. Gertrude says this, 188. One woe doth tread upon another's heel, so fast they follow. Your sister's drowned, Laertes. Drowned! Oh, where? There is a willow, grows askant the brook, and it's a willow. I mean, a great choice. Willows point downward, like they're weeping. Askant the brook that shows his hoar leaves in the glassy stream. Therewith fantastic garlands did she make of crow flowers, nettles, daisies, and long purples, that liberal shepherds give a grosser name. But our cold maids do call dead men's fingers. There on the pendant boughs her coronet, weeds clambering to hang, an envious sliver broke when down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook. She didn't jump in. Her clothes spread wide, and mermaid-like a while they bore her up, which time she chanted snatches of old lauds, as one incapable of her own distress, or like a creature native and endued unto that element. But long it could not be till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. Alas, then she is drowned, drowned, drowned. Too much of water hast thou, poor Ophelia. Now we're talking about the humors. Melancholy. Phlegm, actually. Phlegmatic. And therefore I forbid my tears. You got too much water already. But yet it is our trick. Nature her custom holds. So I forbid my tears, and then the tears spring from his eyes. Let shame say what it will. When these are gone, the woman will be out. Adieu, my lord, I have a speech of fire that fain would blaze, but that this folly drowns it. Let's follow, Gertrude, how much I had to do to calm his rage. Now, fear I this will give it start again. Therefore, let's follow. Okay, so then I'm going to conclude here with the gravedigger scene. I'm going to have to pick it up next time. I just have a couple minutes here. Act 5, Scene 1. There's an interlude. And the famous gravedigger scene where Hamlet is contemplating on the skull of his, if I have it, do I have it? No, I don't have it. There's the skull given to Hamlet. But Hamlet used to ride on the back of this. This was his playmate, a servant. Good old Yorick. He sees him and he sees the end of life. He sees, again, a moldering corpse. And he will reflect on the significance and meaning of life in the light of death, etc. Again, reinforcing the themes of the play. And he comes into it not just on his own to grieve Ophelia, but he will meet Laertes there. And they will vie or compete over affection for her. But they don't draw on each other here. There's a recognition of the appropriateness of grief here. So Hamlet comes into the graveyard with Horatio. Included in the play, it seems to me, for two reasons. One, to explore Hamlet's obsession with death and what follows it. It's consistent theme throughout. Secondly, it brings to conclusion the tragedy of Ophelia. And it's not a meaningless subplot. Very important. We're going to see the end of Ophelia here. In the mourning of those who loved her. So it reinforces what a wonderful character she is. Intensifies the agony of the tragedy here. Now, the gravediggers echo some of Hamlet's sentiments and refer to the concept of action, and they're puzzled here. And why are they puzzled? Because they say that she committed suicide, and this is a Christian graveyard, therefore she doesn't belong here. Because suicide is a mortal sin. And they ask, so why then is she being buried here? And what's their conclusion? Well, there's one law for the rich and there's another one for the poor. And the gravediggers parody Hamlet in these speeches. Hamlet is obsessed with the idea that the body just keeps decaying to nothing. And maybe there's nothing after that then. It's a fanciful thought. He can't actually accept it himself. But I would love to think that nothing comes after death. Because he's still concerned by the whole of what initiated the whole series of events, the ghost of his father. And he compares the state of the skull to the state of a lawyer. And finally, the gravedigger comes across a skull and identifies it as Yorick's skull. But again, the question here in the gravedigger and the the fact that she's being given a Christian burial even though she has committed suicide. We have reason to suspect she did not commit suicide. She let herself drown, but she didn't jump in the water to kill herself. Just didn't have the will to try and fight against it. And Hamlet comments, 196-99 thereabouts, on the deceptiveness of beauty, earthly beauty. And in the burial of Ophelia expresses his shock, first his shock, and then his rivalry with Laertes. And they try and outdo each other in mourning. And so we see something of Hamlet's relation to Ophelia even revealed here at the very end. He actually did love her. And Laertes likewise, they're fighting over who loved her the most to the death. And is the problem of inaction resolved by the end of the play? That's one of the questions we're going to have to deal with. But Hamlet's views in this scene reflect the thinking of the time. The world is in a state of becoming. Ultimate reality will be revealed when Christ returns and there's a new heaven and a new earth. All will stand before the judge. Motives will be judged. Actions and a new purpose will be there. But this world is not yet the full portrait of reality. Again, modern playwrights and directors have a great deal of difficulty or refuse to express the Elizabethan worldview on this. But it's clear in this scene. And he acts with a certain faith, that is Hamlet, that there is a divinity which ultimately will guide his actions to a just outcome, even though he doesn't see the justice in it. He still believes that there will be justice, and it will be done, even if he's not going to be able to bring it about. Again, consolation for Shakespeare's audience, him teaching of an ultimate solace for the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And has he overcome the inability to act? Well, to some degree by expressing his faith in that, I think he has. But even though he can't see what the end is, he still knows that there is an end, and that's enough, because nobody sees the end of all of God's actions and why he lets things happen as they do and end as they do. But I'm going to have to stop there because I've hit the end of my time. I'm going to pick it up next time and conclude Act 5 of Hamlet, and then we will move on to our final work, which is The Tempest. I'll see you then.